Okay, I have two of the same Bible here. Well, they're actually two different Bibles, but they're the same Bible. So let me explain. They are both New American Standard Bible side column reference Bibles. So the one on the left is produced by Zondervan, and the one on the right is a Foundation Publications, so Lockman on the right. So we've got Zondervan and Lockman together here. I thought it would be really interesting to compare these two. The side column reference NASB is a very popular Bible. For some people, they love this Bible. And these are two different editions. The Zondervan, the one on the left, came out pretty recently, this year actually, in 2020. And the one on the right, the Foundation Publications, has been out for quite some time, at least since the early 2000s, maybe the late 90s actually, since the update. And even before that, the Lockman Foundation, I believe, was putting out this side column reference for decades earlier as well. So this is a really classic old style format, but it's been updated with the Zondervan. So I just thought it would be really interesting to compare the classic format from Lockman Foundation with the updated format from Zondervan, show you some of the strengths of each, and then look at, kind of how they compare, what you might think would be better for your use. So let's start with the Lockman here on the right. And one of the things that I would say is definitely better, and a lot of you know this already, you're anticipating that I'm going to say this, is that the notes in the Lockman are more extensive. There's a lot of cross-references in both of these Bibles on the side, but what you get in the Lockman Foundation's version is all of the translator notes. So there's a lot of places where it says literally, or they give alternate readings. So you can see that. Now, let's compare that with both Bibles here. So I'm going to compare Romans chapter 1 just to show you an example here. And definitely I see on the Lockman Foundation version a literal translation here, and you see that here in verse 3. I'm not seeing that over here on this side. However, in verse 14, there is a literal translation here, and you see that over here. So in both of these, in verse 14, you do have that literal translation. The same with verse 21. You do have a literal translation in the Zondervan. And of course, you're going to get that same literal translation note in the Foundation publication one. So what I would say about the translator notes and the references is that the Zondervan actually does have a lot of references. I think that they are reduced or abridged translator notes, but there are some still there. With the Lockman one, you get all of those notes. Now, some people really definitely have a hard time with that. They want all the notes. But I will say, for some people, they don't necessarily want to have every single literal rendering. They want to have the important ones, maybe the ones that are deemed the most important renderings to be able to compare. And so you're going to get some of those in the Zondervan. But if you want to have all the translator notes, that's really the advantage of the Lockman over here. Also, looking at this page, you can see another strength of the Lockman version, in my opinion, which would be the paragraph designations. So in this one, you see a new paragraph designated by a bold number, verse number, and that's in verse 16 and verse 18. If you look over here on the left at the Zondervan, they do, I believe, have bold verse numbers, but I can barely tell that that's bold in verse 8 and verse 16. So the paragraph denotation is clearer in the Lockman version over the Zondervan version. It is still there, but if I had to say, looking at these off the bat, where can I see the paragraphs separated more clearly? I can see that easier in the Lockman version. Another advantage of the Lockman version over the Zondervan is that it is actually a less expensive Bible. I think you can get this probably around $30 to $35. And I believe that the Zondervan would go for more like $45 or $50. So not a huge difference in expense. That's both kind of mid-range, but you are going to get a little bit less expensive, and you're going to pay a little bit less for the Lockman and get those full notes and some of the advantages of the Lockman. And another nice thing about the Lockman, even though you're paying less money, when you actually kind of feel these two, I would say the Lockman actually has a more durable feel to it. These are both synthetic leather covers, I should add. You can get the Zondervan in a really nice leather cover, and the same with the Lockman. So I'm comparing the synthetic covers. But even with this one, the Lockman has cardstock in the front and the back, which you get with the Foundation Publication Bibles. And that cardstock just adds some reinforcement to it that I think is really nice. And you can just feel overall, for the price, you're getting really a durable quality here. And I'll give you a look at the synthetic leather. They call this, I believe, LeatherTex. So it's nice. And I wouldn't say it feels like real leather necessarily, but it looks nice and definitely does the job. So I'd say a little bit sturdier feeling than the Zondervan. I don't know that this one would last longer, but I just feel like in the hand, this one feels sturdier, whereas this feels a little bit less sturdy. And some of that has to do with the cardstock that I mentioned. You get thick cardstock in the Foundation one. This just has light paper in the front and the back. It is kind of cardstock, but just not quite as thick and sturdy feeling. And the same with the cover. The synthetic cover on this one just has a sturdier feel. And this just has a light, really kind of a more flimsy feel on the spine especially. I do think the Zondervan will still last a long time if you take care of it. But as far as just, kind of sturdiness overall, I would say this feels sturdier. Now, all of that being said, there are some really good strengths of the Zondervan version of this Bible. And the first one I'll show you here. So you will notice when you look at the beginning of a book like Ezekiel, in the Zondervan you have a really nice book introduction. Whereas in the Foundation version, you just have the book title and it goes right into the book. So if you want background information about the books, the Zondervan does have that advantage. It also even has an outline for the book, which is really nice. So this is a little bit more just the biblical text. This has a little bit more extra information in the Zondervan. I would also say another advantage of the Zondervan is the text itself. When you actually compare these two texts, the print, this comfort print in the Zondervan, is really readable. It's just a nice large font. The one in the Lockman is pretty large, but I would say the writing just looks a little bit more cramped, and certainly the paper on the Zondervan just doesn't have as much bleed through. That's actually a pretty well-known problem with the Lockman Bible over here, is that you do get a good amount of show through. So you can lift that page up a little bit, separate it from the back, just like that, and it's not as bad. But with the Zondervan, it's line matched, that comfort print font, paper's a bit better, and so overall readability is going to be better in the Zondervan. Another advantage of the Zondervan, I would say, because of that better paper, is probably for writing in, which is one reason you would have a Bible like this in single column with that extra margin space. You want to be able to write in it. The Zondervan paper, I would say, is probably going to be better for underlining and writing in this Bible than the Lockman. So Zondervan wins out, I would say, as far as writing in the Bible. And then finally, I would say the Zondervan is better than the Lockman in just its overall design and look. And again, when you look at those two prints, you could see some of the advantages there. But also just in the design itself, I think the Lockman looks nice. You see here, I mean, it's just kind of a straightforward, simple look. But this ribbon here, you get one ribbon in this pretty big Bible, whereas in the Zondervan you get two different colored ribbons cut at an angle, with a really nice color scheme. Then you look at the spine here. I think this cover just has a little nicer look to it, in my opinion. And so if you compare that to this one, that design is really nice in the Zondervan. You also have perimeter stitching on the cover in the Zondervan. And when you get inside here, again, I do think the Lockman has a little bit sturdier lining and design to it. But this Zondervan just looks so nice. And this is interesting to compare these two. The presentation page on the Zondervan just looks more up to date. I really like that. And it has this verse here from Psalm 119. But I will say the Lockman does have a lot of pages here if you prefer that sort of thing for writing in family information. Whereas with the Zondervan, you're just going to get that presentation page and then go right into the Bible. Some people actually, though, would really prefer something that's more straightforward and streamlined. But again, when I look at the two on the inside, I have to say overall, and this is definitely a subjective thing, some people would look at this and they would actually prefer the way that looks. But I think the design of this comfort print with the red highlights for the chapter headings and the chapter numbers, the references on the side here, the numbers are in red. So there's just some really nice red highlighting, whereas this is all black. The text of the comfort print, so well designed. This is just more, it kind of looks a little bit more busy and cramped to my eye. So I think the overall inside design is better in the Zondervan. You can also see with the design that the Zondervan box is nicer too. This is a clamshell opening box, really nicely designed by Zondervan. With the Foundation Bible, you just get this sleeve when you get the synthetic leather cover. So just a sleeve versus this nicely designed box. So the Zondervan is designed nicer in that way too. So there you go. That's my comparison of these two Bibles that are actually the same Bible, the New American Standard Bible side column reference, although here it says single column, but here it says side column references. But they are pretty much the same Bible, but with the differences that I mentioned. So they're not exactly the same. This one by Foundations, this one by Zondervan. You can decide which is better for you, but in my opinion, they both have their strengths. Both great Bibles to have if you like the NASB and want to have a great Bible for study on your shelf. Both of these are great options. Thank you as always for watching a look at these Bibles brought to you from a First Perspective.